have filmed myself in well over 300 videos. So I'm gonna show you today how to film yourself and not make all the mistakes that I made. That I've actually made way too many times. An uncomfortable amount of times, if I'm honest. Awkward. Now, you might have noticed that I'm not in a studio. I'm actually outside, and there's a very good reason for that. See, most videos I've found either teach you how to film A-roll in a controlled environment like a studio, or B-roll outdoors. But what happens when you don't get the luxury of filming A-roll in a controlled environment? And trust me, all of these tips are still gonna work in a studio, but also they're gonna help you if you wanna step outside for a minute and enjoy the beautiful scenery. See, to me, outside is kind of a proving ground. You've got light that's constantly changing, white balance constantly shifts, you've got random different audio concerns. So if we can really learn how to dial this in, then kind of studio stuff is almost easy. Okay, so first let's talk about lighting. In a perfect world, we always shoot at golden hour, right? Which is an hour, roughly, give or take, after the sun rises, and then about an hour before the sun sets. But the reason that golden hour works so well is because of the way that the sun is positioned in the sky and how it casts shadows. See, when you're setting up a key light, like your main light in a studio, you're gonna set that light about 45 degrees above you, meaning that it's gonna be kind of shining down at an angle on you. Now, during golden hour, that's generally about where the sun is in the sky. It's this very flattering light, and it gives you these opportunities to have these amazing different scenes. But let's be real, most of us don't have the luxury of only shooting in the sometimes 30 minutes that is golden hour. So if you're gonna be filming outside in the afternoon, I like to find shade. So right now, I'm standing in shade. You can see behind me, there's a big sunspot. Okay, now I'm over in the sunny area, and you can see how much more dramatic these shadows are, right? If I take my hat off, see how much more dramatic the shadows are under my eyelids. And with that said, the sun is like right here right now. It's not even directly overhead. See, I'm starting to get more of these raccoon eyes. Okay, so it's later in the day. This is what's happening. I actually love to use this app on my phone called Sun Seeker. It's amazing for telling you exactly where the sun is gonna be at any given time of the day. Now, another thing is the white balance. How do we address that? I prefer to set my white balance to a manual setting so that it doesn't shift. If you set your white balance to auto, and especially if you're walking, if you get into the shade and you've got like green leaves and stuff like that, they're gonna cast light on you, and your white balance is gonna be shifting back and forth. And that's a nightmare to try to fix in post. Sometimes the camera gets it right, many times it does not. So I would prefer to just set mine to, if it's bright and sunny, roughly 5,600 to 6,500 Kelvin, somewhere in that range. I kind of eyeball it. I like to kind of match the light that I'm in. Or if it's cloudy, I might go down to like 4,800 or somewhere in that range. And then I lock it in and I leave it there, and that's where it gets set. Now also, once you get outside and you're dealing with the sun as your main light source, it's gonna be really hard to get exposure if you don't use ND filters. I'm sure you've heard about them. Usually there's something that you screw on the end of your lens, and it's kind of like putting sunglasses on your lens. Now, the camera that I'm using right now is called the Canon C70. And one of the reasons that I love it is because this one just has a little button, and it's got built-in NDs. So I can lighten it or I can darken it just by hitting a button. So that's way easier for me to just click, 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 and run through them and change them depending on how the light is affecting the overall scene. I prefer that. It is absolutely not necessary, but for me, that's probably one of my favorite things. And now all my cameras except one have built-in ND filters. I can tell you, you're gonna hear a lot of people say audio is more important than video, audio is as important from video. I think it's more important. And the reason I say this is because the times in the past on my videos on my other channel where the audio is off, the comment section goes nuts over it. And that tells me that if that many people are leaving comments, how many people left the video without even bothering to leave a comment? But if I have a scene or a shot that's a little bit out of focus or something like that, that's not such a big deal, and people really don't even notice it or talk about it. Okay, so we're filming outside and we can't control the variables. For me, when I'm going outside, I'm looking for something, and usually it's an amazing view, which we don't have right now. But many times that view comes with sound or audio concerns, which right now is this stream that we have behind us that you can't see, but I'm sure you can hear. Or what if there's an epic waterfall behind you and you want to show it off? what do? Or it might be a crowd of people or a barking dog or a freeway or whatever it is. But here's how I deal with it. Many times on your camera, you might be using something called a shotgun mic. It's like this thing right here. As it's trying to grab audio from everything in front of it, while at the same time, it's trying to block the audio from the sides and behind it. So it's great if you're talking to camera and you can get close enough to this to where it actually gets good audio. Now, in a studio, you're gonna have that usually pointing straight down at your chest, just out of frame, right? As close as you can get it. If you point it at your chest, you're gonna get a much deeper, richer sound to your voice. But pointing it at your mouth is actually gonna get it a little bit higher and tinnier, if you will. Now, the issue is, if you've got something beautiful like a waterfall or something in the behind you that you wanna show, the audio is behind you too. So this is gonna be picking up all of that creek right now that you hear, the waterfall or the crowd of people or whatever. I get it. In today's editing software, the noise cancellation and all the AI features have gotten so good that they do an incredible job of blocking all that out. But I can tell you that if it gets too bad and you use those and you have to use too much of those, it can make your voice sound really weird and awkward. So ideally, we want to address as much of this in camera as we possibly can. So for me, what I like to do is I like to actually bring a lav mic. Now, the lav mic is great because it doesn't matter how far I am away from the camera. Actually, this lav mic is attached to you way over there, but it sounds like I'm right here close to the camera like I am here. So the lav allows us to really get some freedom of motion away from the camera and really get audio from wherever. Also, this is great for B-roll because if you think about it, B-roll, sometimes you like the audio on B-roll, you like that sound design. Well, maybe you're walking through a field or something, you can get the audio of you actually doing that really easily. One of the benefits to this in this scenario right here is you probably notice that right now when I'm using the shotgun mic, you hear that babbling creek behind me. Babbling creek, who says that? You hear the creek. Now I'm using the lav mic and you don't hear it quite as dramatically. Now, while this lav mic does pick up sound omnidirectional or all around it, I'm standing between it and that creek. So that thing is behind me, but I am blocking some of that audio. Now, one other thing that I always do if I leave the house is if I've got a shotgun mic on my camera, I have one of these big windscreens on it, okay? They're called dead cats, but that's gonna help block the wind when it inevitably comes up, blows around, and all of a sudden ruins your audio completely. I can tell you that getting wind out of the audio is far harder than a little bit of a stream in the background. I've called that thing everything so far. Crick, babbling crick, stream. It's a river. Now it's a river. Okay, now one other thing is I always have two forms of audio now. And the reason is because I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a situation where I filmed something, then realized that the battery that's in my shotgun mic went dead, or I forgot to plug the shotgun mic in, or it came unplugged, or something happened. I got home and boom, I have no audio. Best case scenario, I get to refilm that entire thing all over again. Worst case scenario, I'm out here, I can't film it again. So for me, having a lav mic, this is currently the DJI Mic 2, and I love this mic for this reason. Having this mic, I get to then have the lav mic and that shotgun mic. I clap, then in the post, in the editing, I sync those two files up, and now I have redundancy. If anything happens with this mic, I'm covered because I've got this mic. Even better than that, what I really like it for is I like it for the freedom. It allows me to say, hey, I'm gonna walk around, and maybe I'm gonna come over here, and I want the audio to still sound great, even though I'm not facing this camera right now. Maybe I'm looking over here real quick to point something out, look at the stream, wow, it's a great stream. A river, forgot, that's a great river. And now I'm looking back at the mic, right? If I were to do that and I only had this shotgun mic, it's gonna sound like this. To point something out, look at the stream, wow, it's a great stream. If I can only have one mic, maybe it's a shotgun mic or it's a lav mic, I'm gonna bring the lav mic. Okay, now when it comes to getting B-roll, it's essentially that you want for every scene, you want 2 wides, 2 mediums, and 2 tight shots, as well as a couple of interesting shots or texture shots. Now, this is important because if you don't do this, you're gonna get back into going to the edit and you're gonna be like, crap, I don't have nearly enough footage or coverage to really like tell this story. Now, the bigger question is, how do you appropriately do that? So for the texture shots, I like to get shots of, like maybe the ambient wood or the rocks around, or maybe, it's the river, or it's just, an interesting shot. Maybe it's, something that is very backlit and there's a silhouette, right? And it's not the normal conventional shot. Okay, so let's imagine that I want to get a shot of me walking up this little pathway right over here. And there's a cool little like stump right here that I'm going to go next to. So how do I do it? Well, one thing is we want to make sure that we get good focus. So what I like to do is actually set focus on the area that's going to be the most important, where I want the camera to have me in focus. And I'm going to lock my focus onto manual so that it doesn't jump and hunt and try to find me in the frame. So what I'll do is I'll get out of the frame now. Okay, I want it to be right there. That's where I want the focus to be. So I'm going to lock this in manual. Perfect. Now I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to walk through frame now, like this. It's as though I'm just out here on a hike, walking horribly awkwardly, because this is how I walk on hikes. I don't, because I would have to slap myself in my own face if I did that, but you get the point. So now, when I come back into frame, I am way out of focus. But pop it back into focus now, and now I'm good. So locking your focus is really important. If you can't find like a stump or something, you can always like take a hat off or take a jacket off or your backpack, whatever you got. Set it down wherever you want it to be in focus. Lock focus on that, walk into frame, and go do it that way. I also like to usually get a little bit of foreground, so let me move this camera a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna take it in that same spot, but this is gonna be a little bit more dynamic because I'm gonna use this tree right here as foreground. I'm gonna move in a little bit, punch in a little bit. I'm gonna get focused back on that stump right over here, right in that area right there. I'm gonna lock my focus in, and now I'm gonna go back and do it again. Okay, and now you can see how, because there's that little bit of foreground in the shot as well as the background, it's just a little bit more of a dimensional, a little bit more of a dynamic shot. That's about it for this one. There is a forest fire that I started not that far away, and it looks like it's big. And if you know anything about forest fires, you know how fast they can spread. So rather than me get stuck out here, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. But with that said, let me know in the comments if you've got anything that you love to do to practice. Otherwise, I appreciate you, and I will see you right over here in that video over there. So go do that. Go there. See you there. You ready to get out of here, buddy? Let's not catch on fire. How does that sound, huh? All right.